and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the southeast. The Sarah Everard murder investigation. Now police search an area in Sandwich and seal off recycling bins.
A horse owner is left needing hospital treatment after her ponies were attacked by dogs near Margate. And embarking on their canine career. 18 months on, we catch up with police recruits Rio and River. Good evening. An area of Sandwich in Kent is being searched tonight and recycling bins searched and sealed off by police investigating the murder of Sarah Everard.
The 33-year-old went missing while walking home from a friend's flat in South London on the 3rd of March. Her body was found a week later in woodland near Ashford. Well, our reporter Sarah Saunders is in Sandwich for us. So Sarah, what's the latest, please?
Well, as police continue their investigation, they've actually closed off quite a large area here in the centre of Sandwich, and searches are going on as we speak. You may be able to see here behind me recycling bins are being checked. Some of them were open, some of them had to be forced open. Also, half the Guildhall car park area is now behind police tape, and police have also been searching a local supermarket area. Now, we're just walking down toward the Guildhall car park because one of the most significant areas that has actually been taped off is a public footpath that runs along the back of the car park here. It goes through the centre of town and comes out in Meadowland, and it runs along the course of a waterway. Now, officers are also still investigating in the woodland in Ashford where Sarah's body was found, and they haven't explained why searchers have now come here to Sandwich, but they have asked members of the public to kindly give them the space to work.
The message for the public is please do not come down here. The police are working very hard, and social distancing these days is so important, so please do not come down here. We will get as much information, probably through you, to the public as quickly as we can.
Well, we now know that the coroner's inquest into Sarah Everard's death is likely to take place later this week, and serving Metropolitan Police Officer Wayne Cousins from Deal, who has been arrested on suspicion of kidnap and murder, is due to appear in court tomorrow.
Sarah, thank you. Meanwhile, an internal investigation is being conducted by Sussex Police over its response to a vigil for Sarah Everard in Brighton on Saturday night.
Around 150 people gathered at Valley Gardens, despite warnings not to flout coronavirus lockdown rules. Police issued 8 fixed penalty notices and made 1 arrest.
But those who attended say the response by officers was shocking. And last night a protest was held outside Brighton Police Station by those who feel the police acted inappropriately. With more, James Dunham.
Underneath the silence, anger and frustration.
I would say the police response was unjustified, it was unnecessary, it was an abuse of power, it was forceful, and it completely escalated the situation far beyond what it needed to be.
That police response came on Saturday night at a vigil in Brighton for Sarah Everard to reflect and highlight the issue of women's safety. Francesca says everyone was socially distanced, but officers took physical action before even asking people to leave.
If the police had stood by, took a step back, let people say their word and then leave and peacefully go home, much like the ones that happened in both Nottingham and Bristol, for example, with a similar amount of numbers, people would have gone home peacefully and there would have been no need for clashes, no need to arrest anyone, no need to manhandle women to the ground.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Demonstrators marched through the city yesterday, escorted by Sussex Police. Today, the force confirmed it will review footage recorded by officers' body-worn cameras at the vigil as part of an internal investigation. There's been a backlash against police. Doesn't this damage trust between the public and your force?
It's hugely important that we work together with the public on this. It's very clear that if people break the regulations, we will always encourage them to comply with any request to leave the area. But enforcement is the final option. If there was any wrongdoing or any lessons learned, we would absolutely act on that. But we must be clear that we have a responsibility to enforce the regulations to keep communities safe.
At the location of Saturday's vigil this afternoon, there was quiet reflection. Francesca says despite what's happened, women will not be silenced. James Dunham, ITV News, Brighton.
And over to our political correspondent Phil Hornby now. Phil, the Home Secretary has given a statement on the Met's handling of a vigil for Sarah Everard held in London over the weekend.
Yeah, and there's big concern amongst many MPs, I think, about events at the weekend in different parts of the country, but particularly London. Here is the Green MP for Brighton Pavilion.
I acknowledge the particular policing challenges at a time of COVID restrictions, but the Met is still obliged to follow the Human Rights Act and execute its powers proportionately and only when necessary. And it's clear to everyone that they got it terribly wrong on Saturday night.
Coincidentally, today the government are introducing their policing bill, which will give the police greater power against demonstrators, among other things. It also affects all different aspects of law and order, but opposition MPs are not happy with it.
In order to seriously tackle violence against women and girls, it's vital to put women at the heart of legislation. However, in today's policing bill, women are not even mentioned. With that in mind, and with rape convictions being at a shocking all-time low, how will the Home Secretary ensure that women can come forward with confidence that they will be believed and that they will receive justice?
And on the subject of the safety of women and girls, this from a former Prime Minister.
If we are going to eradicate violence against women and girls, we need a change of attitudes. And that is about dealing with perpetrators, changing their behaviour, but also teaching young men and boys about respect for women and about what is or is not acceptable in a relationship.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Home Secretary says lessons will be learned from the weekend vigils that went wrong.
Phil, thank you.
In other news, a court's been told an NHS catering worker feared for his life when an intruder repeatedly stabbed him on a hospital ward. George Joseph was attacked at the Royal Sussex County Hospital in Brighton last summer. Connolly Mellon, who's 30, denies attempted murder and possessing an offensive weapon. The jury heard he'd been on medication for mental health problems and told the police he was following orders from the SAS. The trial continues.
A man who tried to rob a stranger in Maidstone whilst armed with 2 kitchen knives has been jailed. Jason Barnes chased his victim with the weapons after demanding he hand over his possessions at knife point. The 47-year-old was found by police nearby. He attempted to headbutt an officer who was searching for him. He was sentenced to 4 years and 5 months in prison.
The leader of Kent County Council's welcomed the government's decision to delay the introduction of new import rules. Paperwork checks on food and plant imports will now come into effect 6 months later than planned. Roger Goff says it will give businesses more time to recover from the impacts of the lockdown.
A woman from Kent says she was left petrified after her ponies were attacked by dogs while out riding near Margate. She was kicked in the face during the ordeal while a child was bitten on the foot. It's after a similar incident near Brighton led to calls for a change in the law. With more, Kit Bradshaw.
Helen Hart Mitchell has been riding horses in Kent for 45 years, but this is the first time one of them has caused her to end up in hospital. The reason, an attack by dogs.
It's every horse owner's nightmare. Never witnessed it before in my life. Never. Not to the point where these dogs are savagely grabbing at Milo's throat and neck and grabbing hold of a child. They were trying to bring that pony down savagely to kill it.
In the commotion, Milo kicked Helen in the face. The pony was badly hurt too. He was one of 2 horses she'd been exercising on the beach between Westgate and Margate. The riders, Jasmine and Annabelle, are just 11 years old, seen here on another ride. Jasmine's foot was bitten, but thankfully her boots prevented any lasting physical damage.
They're traumatised by this, they really are. The parents have phoned up and said that they're in tears about this, and they feel very sorry that their ponies had to go through this too.
It follows an incident in Sussex that was caught on camera, in which 3 dogs encircled a rider. It's against the law for an owner to allow a dog to be dangerously out of control, but some have called for stricter legislation to be considered.
I think that the laws do need to be reviewed, and I think that clearer guidance needs to be set out, and we should intervene a lot sooner, and have our dogs under much closer control. And if they're not, if you haven't got to that point yet, then be sensible and keep them on a lead.
Kent Police says its investigation into this incident from January is ongoing, and its officers have spoken to both parties and kept everyone involved updated as appropriate. Jasmine and Annabelle are now back in the saddle. With many happy years of horse riding ahead of them, they hope they'll never be confronted by an out-of-control dog again. Kit Bradshaw, ITV News, Westgate.
A refugee who fled Iran when he was just 17 has been told he can train to become a doctor in Sussex only 5 years later.
All the more remarkable, Ali Mohammadi has had to teach himself English, yet was one of the top candidates for a place at medical school. Andy Dickinson takes up the story.
Please stay at home.
Back to college and an introductory class on lessons out of lockdown. But one student here has already surpassed all expectations, even with the pandemic. Ali Mohammadi on the cusp of training to become a doctor, 5 years after arriving as a refugee who couldn't speak a word of English.
The dream of becoming a doctor has been always with me since I was a child. And when I moved to the UK, that was quite impossible at the time.
Within 3 hours of his medical interview, Ali was offered a place at university. Not just his hard work rewarded, but also the faith of teachers who gave him their first ever scholarship to help get him this far.
I think anybody who can battle against the odds and can start again in a new country and really make a success of it and really work as hard as he has done, I can only celebrate that, and there's an enormous amount of resilience there.
I was the one that was able to give him that phone call to give him his offer, and he was just so overwhelmed, overjoyed with emotion. He was so grateful to be part of the programme and have the opportunity to be able to study medicine, and just his reaction was phenomenal.
It was a long journey to get here and very surprising and also shocking. I didn't give up, and I wanted to work in healthcare system, and that was my main goal in my life.
Ali's journey has already taken him to volunteering as a first aider here at Brighton and Hove Albion. His dream to repay those who've helped him already becoming a reality. Andy Dickinson, ITV News, Lewis.
Keep up the good work, Ali. Now, the experiences of National Service veterans have been remembered in a lottery-funded project marking 60 years since the end of conscription in the UK. The online exhibition features interviews with those who were called up to serve.
More than 2 million men were conscripted to spend time in the armed forces following the Second World War. Here's Kevin Ashford.
They're young national servicemen, and it's all part of the grueling business of becoming an efficient soldier.
The war was over, but military service was not. Conscription in the UK had begun at the start of the Second World War and continued even after that conflict was over. Every eligible young man was called up to serve for 18 months in one of the armed forces, extended to 2 years when Britain was involved in the Korean War. Charles Atkins from Chatham in Kent did his national service in the RAF in 1960.
Sometimes it was so bad, other times it was wonderful. But then I think the best time really was being out in the country and having loads of exercise. And of course there was more order. I mean, when I came back, when I got demobbed and came back to Civil Street, it was chaotic.
Many national servicemen were involved in combat around the world. and a total of 395 were killed in that active service after the Second World War. The National Arboretum has a memorial to those who did their national service. Marie Locke's father and father-in-law were both conscripts, and that inspired her to be a volunteer here.
I sort of felt a bit of an allegiance to it. You know, luckily, obviously, both my father and father-in-law survived. They didn't actually see any action when they were doing their national service, although they were very important to it. And so that sort of gave me a bit of a reason, really, to sort of align myself here.
The impact of national service was huge. For the country, it meant having enough military personnel to enable Britain to continue to have a role internationally. For many of those who were conscripted, it meant experiences that otherwise they would never have had.
For many people, it was the first time they'd been abroad when they were positioned around the world. And not only going abroad, but they were going to live abroad as well. So for a lot of people, it was their first time away from home, first time having to learn life skills, and it set a lot of people up for the rest of their lives, both with their skills and in their career.
The last conscripts were demobbed in the early 1960s, the end of an era for the country and for those who served. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
And the ITV Evening News continues here with the national and international news at 6:30. Here's Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the programme, the Prime Minister's promise to make women feel safe. After the murder of Sarah Everard, tonight Boris Johnson is hosting a safety summit from Downing Street as his critics call for action and not just words. Germany and France become the latest nations to suspend the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine, but here officials insist there is nothing to worry about. And
I'm so excited.
An evening of record breakers at the Grammys. And not just Beyoncé will meet the young Brit making a name for himself stateside. Well, do join me for that and more at 6:30.
And talking of that, the UK live music industry is worth around £1.1 billion to the economy, according to figures. But as we all know, COVID has cancelled so many gigs and forced hundreds of venues to close their doors.
And although there is still some uncertainty surrounding when they'll reopen, many bands and performers are starting to announce tours for later this year. Among them, UB40, who are bringing 4 decades of hits to the stage in Brighton later this year. And they've been telling Matt Price how much they've missed performing for fans.
Yes, you think of UB40 and what songs come to your mind? Is it Red, Red Wine or Can't Help Falling in Love with You? Well, the catalogue is so vast. After all, they've sold 100 million albums worldwide. And I'm pleased to say that I'm here with Robin and Earl from the band. We need to quickly say that you're in a COVID bubble, which means you can sit nice and close to each other. Let's talk. We touched on COVID there. What's it been like for the last 12 months? You guys have been desperate to perform.
Absolutely. It's been a nightmare as far as the band's concerned because we did have a whole tour booked for the whole of 2020 and we were going to be touring all over the world as well as having a big UK tour. And obviously that all got stymied. It all had to be shelved and we spent the year rescheduling dates all the time and kept putting them back and kept putting them back. And here we are again in 21 and we've now got a British tour that we're going to do in November, December, and 24 dates, half a dozen arenas, and we're really looking forward to it. And we have it on good authority that these dates aren't going to change.
It will not be cancelled. And Earl, we hear all the time, don't we, about how venues have really suffered as a result of lockdown. Performers have as well. You just want nothing more than to get out on that stage.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're born to do, you know, is to perform. We love going into a venue and, like, you know, setting the place on fire, getting everybody up and dancing. That's what we're all about. So it has been quite difficult, to tell you the truth. And obviously a lot of people have suffered in the industry as well, like the sound guys, lighting guys. There's been, a lot of turmoil.
Absolutely. Now, I know all of the classics from the 80s and the 90s. Are you going to be performing those on the tour as well as the new stuff?
Of course, yeah, we have to play the classics. We have to play some of the hits and usually the bigger ones, you know, that everybody wants to hear, that the more casual fans want to hear, of course. But we also have a new album coming out in April, a collaboration album, which we'll be playing tracks off. We always like to do a mixture of the hits and whatever new stuff we're working on.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you the very best of luck with it all. Of course, UB40 will be performing some of their greatest hits in some of the greatest venues right across the UK. It all starts in November and tickets are on sale now.
Now, if you can, cast your mind back to the end of 2019, seems like a long time ago, and we went to film with the latest litter of police puppies for Surrey and Sussex when they were just a few weeks old.
Now 18 months have passed, a lot has happened. But how has the pandemic affected the life of a police pup? Chloe Oliver's been to see how the four-legged force is getting on and couldn't pass up the chance to meet this year's newest recruits.
These are the only new recruits that can get away with putting their feet up on the job. The black and red Labradors are currently with foster families, but today they've been reunited and they're pretty excited about it. The Puppy Patrol are ready to jump into training, but being this cute is thirsty work. The new litter were born and bred here. They're among 70 pups currently being trained at the world-leading dog school in Guildford. Surrey and Sussex police work together to train some of the country's most sought-after canines. It's a process that begins at an early age.
Tom went out to his puppy minders at 8 weeks old, and he'll stay with them for around 12 months until he's old enough to come in full-time. But they come in every month for training, so we can assess their development. And it's slobbering all over my fingers.
18 months ago, I filmed with the force's latest litter when they were just 8 weeks old. Today, I caught up with two of them to see how they're adapting to life on the beat. And as I've found out, they're a lot stronger than they look.
So what kind of thing are they going to be doing then?
We're hopefully both dogs are going to become explosive search dogs. We're looking to train some dogs for Dublin Airport, which is obviously public security out in Ireland would be a big thing, and these dogs will be perfect for that role.
That's great. And talk to me about their names.
Right, this is River and Rio. I was very fortunate to help the Turkish government do some work on explosives. We gave the British consulate, they could name a dog, and they named one, obviously Rio.
The last time I saw River, Rio and their siblings, it was months before coronavirus changed life as we know it.
It's been challenging, and obviously the training has been delayed with all what's going on. Maintaining the system and ensuring the operational effectiveness is still done has been there, but trying to plan for the future, as you can imagine, has been challenging around the current lockdown. The airport is very quiet. It's given us time to enhance certain things, but these dogs need to get out and need to be worked because their age is perfect. So I'm desperate to get them out and working as soon as I can.
This is River at work. It took him seconds to discover the hidden device under the wooden cabinet.
Yes.
He's been trained to stop and signal when he's discovered something. From detecting drugs to tackling hardened criminals or searching for missing people, sometimes a human needs a dog's help.
I think across all of our disciplines with the dogs, their noses are absolutely phenomenal compared to ours. We also train drugs dogs who will find drugs, cash, firearms and ammunition. They'll work at train stations and airports, music festivals and things like that.
But for these pups, it's just the beginning. In a year's time, they'll take their first step towards becoming a working police dog. Chloe Oliver, ITV News, Surrey Police Headquarters.
Never a dull moment, and what beautiful dogs. And we will, of course, follow the progress of River, Rio and the new recruits, Todd, Timber, Tala, Tom and Tyr, over the next year. And remember, you can see more of the pups, including some outtakes from our filming on our website and our Facebook page. You know what they say, never work with animals.
But we always love working with weather presenters, especially young Chris Page. Here he is.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
Hello there.
Very good evening to you. Across much of the region through today, compared to what we saw last week, it's been fairly quiet. In fact, a lovely start first thing this morning. We've seen some beautiful spells of sunshine too. There has been some light outbreaks of rain around, and for the week ahead, when it stays partly cloudy, there will still be some light outbreaks of rain or drizzle at times. And also, as we head towards the end of the week, there's the chance it could turn a touch cooler and fresher too. It's high pressure that's with us at the moment, but it's located mostly across western sides of the UK. As we head towards Thursday and Friday, it's just starting to bring something a touch cooler across its eastern side, and that maybe allow those temperatures to slide away. But as we go through the rest of this evening and overnight, though, yes, we hold on to the cloudier skies. It's mostly dry, but then by the second half of the night, we'll introduce a little bit more cloud cover and some light outbreaks of rain by dawn. But with the cloud cover and the rain, temperatures will hold up between 6 and 7 degrees. It does mean we start tomorrow morning, then on Tuesday, a much greyer and wetter affair compared to today. In fact, that weather front lingering with us through the day, light outbreaks of rain and drizzle, and then the wind strengthening by the afternoon too, particularly for the likes of Kent. Temperatures 11, 12 degrees Celsius, but feeling a little bit cooler than that where we've got the wind and the rain. Now here, times of high water, looking at Margate there at 1:35 tomorrow morning and 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. By Wednesday, the middle part of the week, we've still got some patchy amounts of cloud with us, some light outbreaks of rain and drizzle at times, but I think the further west staying driest for longest. Still that northerly airflow too, and temperatures around 10 degrees Celsius, that's 50 in Fahrenheit. So yes, patchy amounts of cloud through this week and turning a touch cooler as we end the week too, with some light outbreaks of rain at times. See you later.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV Meridian weather.
That's how the South East looks tonight. In just a moment, the ITV Evening News Hour continues here with Mary Nightingale.
Stacey Poole's got our late news, but for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you very much indeed for watching. Take care, stay safe from us all.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.